is read or write. Keep it safe and make sure there's no fire. Open to YouTube and look for Kids Fire Protection Answers.
Well, hi guys. Today we're going to talk about drum drips, heaters, and your responsibilities through winter for your fire sprinkler system. Drum drips through summer should be purged of all moisture. You could do that weekly until they're clear, and then monthly, or you could do it quarterly if you have a fairly dry system. But when you're getting a half a gallon of water out of each drum drip, I would do it weekly until they're clear. Once they're clear, do it, monthly, and then quarterly as you see fit until your system is dry. The point is, if you leave any moisture in that drum drip, it's going to freeze and break. The proper way to operate your drum drip is to close the top valve, which should be open, and pull the plug, put a bucket underneath it, and open the bottom valve slowly. It may splash, so be careful. If there is a plug, that means that you're not piped out to the outside. So you're probably in a parking garage or somewhere where it may be okay to let that flow. If you have jeans and sneakers or light colored clothing, don't do that. It will be rust colored. It will be yucky. So you want to have a bucket to catch that water and face it away from you. So keep the edge of the bucket away from you when you are doing that, and hopefully you won't get splashed. If it's piped to the outside, you don't have to worry about that. Drum drips should be operated weekly through winter, possibly even twice a week through winter, until the system is completely clear. If you have any moisture in there and it's winter already, I would be doing it until it's clear every day. So you operate the top valve and the bottom valve, close the bottom valve, open the top valve, let it sit for 30 minutes, come back, do it again until it's dry. The point is, if that freezes and breaks, you're going to have one heck of a mess because your dry system is going to trip and all of that pipe will freeze. So it's very, very important to have your drum drips completely purged of all moisture by winter. You want to operate these weekly through winter, even if they are dry. Through summer, you want to operate them monthly. You could even go quarterly if it's a really dry system. These things are your condensate catch. If there's any moisture in there that's going to get warm and float through the system and then condensate somewhere, it's going to go here. So you want those things completely dry. It is that season. I'm filming this in October, and I'm in the middle of the country, Tennessee, so yeah, it's very important to get those things operated properly and on a rate schedule. Why do you need heaters in your riser room? Well, if your riser room is outside, that explains it right there, because that room is going to get cold. So you want heat in that room. Electric heat is fine as long as your electric company is not doing what's called a rolling blackout. Over the last few years, we have had issues where our electric company has shut off power and jockey pumps didn't keep up and kicked on diesel fire pumps, which then ran and covered the entire parking lot with a ice skating rink. Yeah. Because they have an electric jockey pump and there was no electricity for the jockey pump to keep up the system pressure, so the main fire pump kicked on and it had a 6-inch purge valve. So that was fun. Imagine showing up to that service call. Yeah. Anywho, so you must keep your riser rooms and fire pump rooms warm. If you find that your electric company is doing rolling blackouts, it may be a good idea to get a propane heater, but that means you're going to have to stay on site. You don't want to leave a propane radiant heater just roaring in a tiny little riser room. That's not going to work. You're gonna set off the fire sprinkler, because most of those do have a fire sprinkler in them, and you will set that sucker off. You want to maintain that room above 45 degrees, because if you don't, at 40 degrees, steel pipe begins to freeze. I know it's not 32, but here's the deal. Steel conducts cold very easily. So once you get to that 40-degree point, the water inside that steel pipe says, oh, it's freezing outside, and starts to freeze and generate ice inside your pipe. And then that expands and breaks the pipe. You do not want that to happen, especially below the control valve, because then we have to shut the ground valve outside. It is the owner or maintenance or owner's representative's responsibility to maintain a dry system in a dry state. Dry system could be a pre-action system. It depends on where it is and what it's covering. If it's all internal, which is usually climate controlled, you don't have to worry so much. But if it's a parking garage or your portico out front or your loading dock area, if it's covering something outside, you want to make sure that those drum drips are dry and that you maintain that system as dry as possible. Like I said, you want to make sure that you operate the top valve, close it first, then you remove your plug and you operate your bottom valve. Just in case that bottom valve is leaking by, you don't want to pull that plug yet. Close the top valve, make sure it's closed, and then operate that bottom valve. And when you're putting it back, you close your bottom valve, put your plug back in, and then open your top valve. Let's go over that one more time. Close your top valve, then open your bottom valve after you've removed the plug. And if it's piped outside, you don't have to worry about removing the plug unless there's a plug outside, in which case that's crazy. Okay, sure, but go remove the plug and then come back to it. And then you'll want to put the plug back in when you're all done. But, so, operate your top valve, close it. Operate your bottom valve, open it. Then, when you're putting things back, you're going to close the bottom valve and reopen the top valve. The point is, you want this valve open at all times in a normal operating situation so that water can condensate in here. If you've had freeze and breaks in the past, it might be a good idea to have your system evaluated for proper insulation. The proper way to insulate a dry pipe system is this way. Or you should have heat pumped into your attic space, which most people don't want to do. And I understand why, because it creates moisture issues. So you want to cover that pipe so that the heat from the floor below is warming that pipe, because that drywall will catch some of that radiant heat and it will radiate into the pipe. That drywall doesn't have a very high insulative factor, but that tent that's over the pipe that you see in the picture there is going to catch that heat and keep that pipe warm. If you've had work done in the attic, it's a good idea before winter to go up and make sure that all of your pipe is covered properly, because if you leave anything uncovered, it will freeze. If it's got any moisture in it, it will freeze. Here's some examples of what can happen. Ooh. Yeah, these are kind of rough to look at, but imagine that happening in a old folks home above a patient room. Yeah, you know, ooh, You really don't want that. Mm-mm. No. So we want to keep our system dry and insulated. The reason we want to do that is it's a dry system. It implies it in the name. So again, you want heat in your riser room. You want proper insulation over your piping. You want to operate your drum drips monthly through spring and fall, quarterly through summer. So if you've got a long summer, do it twice, maybe 3 times, unless you have a lot of moisture, and then you do it until it's dry. Just keep doing it. Set it on a weekly schedule until it's dry, and then come back to it in a month and do it again until it's dry. You want to keep that system as dry as possible. That's the point. And you want to make sure that if you have a fire pump on your building, your fire pump test header is fully drained. So you'll want to go and take these caps off, and you'll want to open those valves up as long as you have a valve inside the pump room for your test header, which is normally closed. If it's closed, you're fine. You should be able to open these valves up and drain any water off of that test header. If you open one of these valves and there's a valve inside and it's closed and your fire pump kicks on, you need to call your service company, because that means that that valve inside is not holding. If your FDC leaks like this, you're going to want to call your service company and have them fix this before winter. You don't want your FDC frozen and broken. You don't want your caps broken. You want what's called a check drip installed at the bottom of your FDC for after it's been used or flushed, that all that water will drain out. And these are some examples. So long story short, try to keep your dry system piping and your fire sprinkler system piping that goes to the outside of the building, your FDC, your drains, your inspector's test valves. If there's a stairwell that's got an inspector's test in it, that stairwell needs to be heated. If it's not, you need to insulate that pipe, because if you don't, it has a high potential to freeze and break. You want to keep all of that piping properly heated, insulated, warm in some way. You can also use Protecto heater cord here. Wrap that around the pipe and plug it in. But once again, rolling blackouts. If your electric company is doing rolling blackouts, this is an issue. Same thing with backflow preventers. If they're doing rolling blackouts, your backflow is not covered. That little heater plate, it'll retain heat for maybe 2 hours, but it's going to slowly get cold in that box. And if there's no power to turn it back on and heat that box, your backflow is going to freeze and break, and that's highly expensive. Rolling blackouts are becoming a big problem for fire sprinkler, plumbing, all kinds of industry with water, because the electric company is not thinking about these systems. They're just thinking, oh, we got to mitigate some of this heat, so we're going to do rolling blackouts, and it's only going to be off for 3 hours. Well, after 2, something starts to freeze, and when it's frozen and broken, it's too late. And most fire pump systems cycle about once an hour. They'll turn on that jockey pump and maintain system pressure. And if they don't have power to do that, then after about 2 hours, your fire pump will kick on. And if it's diesel, if it's electric, it's no big deal. When it comes back on, it's just going to come back on. And hopefully it doesn't kick on your fire pump. If it does, then you just go in and hit the button and turn it off. If you have a diesel fire pump that kicks on after a rolling blackout, you'll need to go out to the fire pump controller, press the red button to turn it off, and then hold that button And on the switch, you're going to want to turn it to O and let it sit. Once the power comes back on, your jockey pump will kick back on and system pressure will go back up. You may end up with a fire alarm, in which case you tell your fire department, yeah, my electric company had a rolling blackout, so we lost some system pressure, and then all of a sudden the jockey pump kicked on and set off our flow switches. Not our fault. Once the power is restored, you're going to want to turn that switch back on. You can release that red button once that's to O. Then you put it back to A, automatic. You never want to put it to hand, because H, hand, that means you're turning it on, and you don't want to do that. So it's either O or A. If you are a property manager who doesn't get to the site very often or at all, but you have maintenance that does check things, you're going to want to send them to check your dry systems at all your properties at least a month before. That way you give your service company time to check things and fix things. I recently found a compressor completely shut down, but at some point, somehow, the system tripped and flooded the compressor, and it just ran until it died. So we're replacing that compressor, but had we not caught it, it's October. Tomorrow's high temperature is going to be 55, which means low is going to be below freezing. So we had our service guys out there yesterday and taking care of things, and props to Nolan, good job. But you want to make sure that you are getting those things checked out. If you don't have maintenance on site or available to go to site, call your service company and say, please check my dry system. Just as a survey, just go and check it, make sure it's not tripped, and make sure that everything is dry so that everything can be taken care of properly before winter. It benefits you because you're not replacing pipe, you're not replacing valves, you're not replacing broken drum drips, you're not having to unfreeze a frozen system, because when your system freezes, all that pipe that's exposed to the cold is going to have ice in it. And that means you have the potential for multiple breaks. You have potential to be replacing your entire system, basically, the entire dry pipe system. So it's very important that you have that checked out before winter. If you have any other dry system questions, maybe you're not 100% sure how this whole thing works, send me an email. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can, and hopefully answer your question. And if it's an important enough question that I think might make a good video, I'll make a video. And we'll get it posted and send you a stray copy. Have a warm winter, and let's not break any pipe. Till next time, guys, like and subscribe, and share this channel with other folks who you think might have some need for fire protection information. We'll see you soon.
When you find your alarm sounds off in the night, don't make mistakes, get answers that are right. Keep it safe and make sure there's no fire. And the YouTube and look for kids fire protection answers. Kids fire protection answers. Got questions, he's got answers that make sense. Don't wait the channel to open his Kids Fire Protection Answers.